Church. We have an acoustic set for you this morning, so it's very casual. Feel free to stand or sit, however you're comfortable worshiping. I'll give you glory for all you brought me through, and now I'm ready for whatever you want to do. I'm moving forward to follow after you, and now I'm ready for whatever you want to do. Your presence is an open door. We want you, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before. In every season, your grace has been enough, and I'm believing the best is yet to come. The cross before me, and my hope on things above, and in you, Jesus, the best is yet to come. Your presence is an open door. We want you, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before. I know breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God made me a promise, and it won't stop now. I know breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God made me a promise, and it won't stop now. I know breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God made me a promise, and it won't stop now. I know breakthrough is coming. By faith, I see a miracle. My God made me a promise, and it won't stop Your presence is an open door. We want you, Lord, like never before. Your presence is an open door. So come now, Lord, like never before. peace. The storm surrounding me, let it break. At your name, still, call the sea to still, the rage in me to still, every wave. At your name, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, and breathe, and call these bones to live, and call these lungs to sing once again. I will praise Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, your name is a light that the shadows can't deny, and your name cannot be overcome. And your name is alive, forever lifted high, and your name cannot be overcome. And Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, you silence fear. And Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus, and Jesus, Jesus, and Jesus, Jesus, and Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Jesus, Jesus. All right, this next one is a new one we're introducing. If you know it, sing along. If not, try and sing along. When it feels like the dark lingers longer than the night, when the shadows feel like giants, are you chasing me down? Tell me, where could I run from your light? Where could I hide? Hemmed within your precious thoughts, there's no hiding from your love. Highs and lows, Lord, you're with me either way it goes. Should I rise or should I fall? Even so, Lord, your mercy isn't even though you're too good to let me go. Should I dance on the heights or make my bed among the depths? Your mercy waits at every end, like you planned it from the start. Should the dawn come with wings or find me far side of the sea, there your hand still fastens me, ever closer to your heart. Oh, highs and lows, Lord, you're with me either way it goes. Should I rise or should I fall? Even so, Lord, your mercy isn't even though. Should I rise or should I fall? You are faithful through it all. You're too good to let me go. Highs and lows, you surround me either way it goes. Should I rise or should I fall? Lord, you're with me through it all. Oh, highs and lows, in the rhythms of your grace I know. Should I rise or should I fall? You are faithful through it all, and you're too good to let me go. Thank you, church. You may be seated.
When I think about what a movement looks like for us, it was moving to the college town of Madison, Wisconsin.
We're super passionate about seeing young people meet Jesus and then have that change the entire trajectory of their life.
We just have to get to the people that are going to be shaping our culture and our country in the years to come. Really, the engine, if you will, of church planting is college students. And if you can give them a church planting vision for the rest of their life, their perspective on life and family and job is going to be around the Great Commission.
And that vision is what drove us to uproot our lives and to move here to Madison.
When you give to the Annie Armstrong Easter offering, you're really giving with the hope to change the world, to reach what used to be some of the most unreached people in America. This gift makes this movement possible to millions of college students around this country.
All right, so we are still collecting for the North American mission trips or missionaries around the North America. And if that is something that's put on your heart to give, there is an envelope in there and you can give towards that. And then also we are giving you more information about mission trips that you can go on with our church, and we would love for you to join us. So there are 3 different mission trips that you can join in on. There is one in June, and that is Deep Creek. That is where we go out to Deep Creek, and we come alongside a bike ride, and we help encourage them and show them love and just give them support support and love on them through that time. And then also July, we're going to be going up to New York. We're going to be coming along a brand new church plant, and we are so excited about that. We're going to help them spread the gospel and spread their name out into New York, so that is exciting. And then also in September, we're going to be going to Cleveland, and that is a construction mission trip, and those dates are flexible for September. So if you're interested in any of those mission trips, please step out in the information area. There is more information out there, and you can sign up and put your name on that list. We would love for you to join us, and you can also use your Connect card that is in your bulletin and just put mission trip on there, and then we can get you more information about that. And you know, if leaving the tri-state area is really not your thing, we have 2 opportunities where you can serve right here in our awesome town of Smithsburg, where we can love on our community. And that's going to be in April. That's the Odyssey race, where we help host an aid station for a running race that comes through this area. And then also in June, we're going to be coming along Smithsburg Days, and we're going to be loving on our community through a kids zone through that. So if you're interested in that, you can just put local missions, and we'll know that you're talking about staying here in our community. Well, welcome. My name's Angela, and I'd like to say good morning and just welcome you to Smithsburg Valley Church. We are so glad you're here because you belong here. And we are a church reaching the tri-state area with a vision, and that is to be a church that the unchurched love to experience. And our mission, if you guys can say it with me, following Jesus, changing together. If you are new this Sunday, please stop by the cafe to receive a free gift so you can go collect your Chick-fil-A gift card. We are so excited you're here, and we just want to give you a gift to say thank you for checking us out and spending part of your Sunday with us. And also, that's another great way to invite your friends. Say, hey, you get a Chick-fil-A gift card. Whether it's a meal or you just stop in and get yourself one of those frozen lemonades. It's a really exciting and easy way to invite your friends. We always have fun things going on around here, and we here at Smithsburg Valley Church love to live life together, and life is better connected. So we want to encourage you to do those. And one of the ways you can do that is to join the church softball team. Okay, so there is a church softball league going on, and it is for co-ed, so women, men, both of you, kids, teens. It's 14 and up. Not too young, not too old. Come on and join the team. So if you're interested in that, just put softball on your Connect card, and then we will get you more information about that. So even if you've never played, it's a great opportunity to just be together and just learn a new thing. And then another thing is next Saturday at 8 o'clock in the morning, we are going to be here, and we are going to be starting to dig footers for the pavilion. So we're excited about that. So if you're interested in helping out with the start of the pavilion, just show up next Saturday here at 8 o'clock, and we will put you to work. All right, you can use your connection card also to ask more questions. If you need any more information, you can sign up for teaching notes. You can let us know more about yourself, where you are in your Jesus journey, and then we will collect those up at the end of the service. You can also submit prayer requests through that. Now it's time for our offering. If our ushers could come forward. And alongside from here, you can also give online or text it using your smartphone. And if you are new with us, please feel free to let the offering plate pass. That's something for our regular members and attenders to do. All right, and because of what you give, we're able to do things like build the pavilion. So we are really excited about that, and thank you so much. Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for all that you give us. Thank you for just bringing us here and just letting us hear your words, that we would be able to become closer to you and grow a relationship with you and just walk further in faith, and just let us be your hands and feet and show our love out in the community. Amen.
Good morning. We're in a series called, am I on? Series called Leading Journey Through Life of Jesus, and today's topic is leading great, and it'll make offense in a few minutes. We'll talk about a powerful, maybe the most powerful leadership principle that we can incorporate and Jesus taught. And people that you respect in leadership positions probably take advantage of this principle, and people you don't respect, don't want to follow, probably don't take advantage of this principle. And in a large part, it explains why the early church, New Testament says it this way, turned the world upside down, without buildings, without money, and all the stuff that we have today. So, in this study we've been doing about Jesus' life from baptism into his crucifixion and resurrection, which is only 4 weeks away, Easter, our biggest holiday, if you want to call it, celebration in the church. And so hopefully you get excited about that. I am. We've been centering this study on this principle or this perspective that Jesus came into the world to introduce something new, brand new. And it wasn't just for Jews, it was for everyone. So this is something new. It's not an add-on to Judaism. It's not just a repackaging of the old. It's not just doing Judaism a different way. This is completely different. Now, in their world, not much different in our world, leadership operated a specific way. The people with the most power exercised that power to make the people under them do what they wanted to do. So exercise authority under other folks. This is the way it worked then. It worked 2,000 years ago. Pretty much works that way today, right? People with power and authority and influence can do what they want to the people with less power and influence. But Jesus said, no, I'm going to bring something brand new. So it equates to this principle of leadership, not only in the world, but also in the church. And so the principle operates normally top down. So the president's at the top, so everybody else has to do what the president wants, pretty much. There's a lot of arguing going on. But anyway, people that have no power, no authority can't really influence much of anything. As Jesus said, this is going to be upside down, like some other things that we talked about in the past couple of weeks. So we want to start today's journey, I guess you would call it, with probably the most controversial, most dramatic miracle that Jesus performed. Jesus performed lots of miracles, but this was the most dramatic one. And if you grew up in church, you know the story. If not, we'll share it quickly. A guy by the name of Lazarus, who's a friend of Jesus, actually dies. But first he gets sick, and Jesus finds out about it. And since he healed sick people, the disciples said, oh, let's run over there and heal Lazarus before he gets any worse. Well, Jesus said, no, we're going to wait a while. So they wait a few days. By the time they get there, Lazarus had been dead. He's been buried. He's been dead for 4 days, and he's been buried. And the way we know that is his sisters respond this way. Jesus, wait a minute. He's already stinking. Body's already rotting. Not a good idea. Of course, he raises Lazarus from the dead. So Lazarus becomes famous. You can imagine, right? Be pretty famous if you've been dead for 4 days and then come back to life. So he's kind of like a tourist attraction. And that's going to feed into our story. So after this all happens, the Pharisees, the religious leaders, are always following Jesus around, trying to trap him or catch him. And so we pick up the story in John's account in chapter 11, verse 46. Some went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. So, hey, just wanted you to know, if you missed it, this guy been dead for 4 days, and Jesus just brought him back to life. All right, so what's the response going to be? Next verse. The leading priests, the Pharisees, called the high council together. So they got the bigwigs together. Okay, this is huge. This is big. We need the most important people to make this decision. And they asked, what are we going to do? We're kind of trying to, discredit this guy, and he's doing this kind of stuff. What are we going to do? This man certainly performs many miraculous signs. So they admitted that he's doing miraculous things, but the fascinating thing is they still didn't want to believe in him. And that's the same response we're going to get today. If we talk about Jesus and we talk about miraculous things, you're going to get people who just kind of lean in and say, oh, that's interesting, I'd like to know more. And other people, even if we could convince them it was real, they would still push back because they don't want to believe. And then the text goes on, John. If we allow him to go on like this, Soon everyone will believe in him, which means what? They won't believe in them. All right, so it's kind of like trying to get the biggest crowd. And so we had the crowd, and the crowd is gradually moving over here to Jesus. Eventually, we weren't going to have anybody. So then our power, our authority, our notoriety will be gone. But there's a bigger issue, or maybe just a big issue. The Roman army will come in and destroy both our temple and our nation. So these guys, these religious leaders, were responsible for keeping the peace. And so if something happens that causes a turmoil or potential revolution or insurrection, these guys are going to be held accountable, and the Romans weren't going to put up with it, as we talked about last week. He said they come in and destroy our temple, and if they destroy the temple, it's basically destroy our nation, which we said last week happened in 70 AD. But Jesus said, I've come to replace you guys anyway. I know you don't want to hear that, but that's what I've come to do. So skipping down a few verses. After they discuss this a little bit, this is the conclusion they come to. Kind of weird. Talking about religious leaders, right? So from that time on, the Jewish leaders began to plot Jesus' death. One of the 10 Commandments, don't do that, but we're going to ignore that because we don't like this guy. So they began to plan to kill him. So Jesus' response to this is, it's not quite time for me to die. I'm going to die, but this is not time yet. So John tells us that he stopped his public ministry in Jerusalem and went to a place in the wilderness, the village of Ephraim, and stayed there with his disciples. So they went off for a while for a ways. Now, Passover's coming up. Passover is the huge religious holiday in Judaism. It takes place same time as Easter because Jesus changed it for us. And we'll talk about that in a few weeks. So Jesus is in Ephraim. He's not in Jerusalem. And the religious leaders had spies run around. If you're going to kill somebody, you got to find them, right? And so they had spies all around. So there's a lot of tension. There's a lot of intrigue. You could probably make a movie about this. Spies trying to find Jesus, and Jesus trying to stay hidden for a little while anyway. But when the people there, next chapter, back in John, when all the people heard of Jesus' arrival, they flocked to see him. But not only him, who else? Lazarus. Now, Jesus, I know you're performing miracles and you're famous. We want to see you, but we want to really, it's like a circus act, right? We want to see this guy that was dead and now he's alive, walking around. That's pretty amazing. So again, he was popular, tourist attraction. People wanted to come and see him. The man that he had raised from the dead. The text goes on. Then the leading priest, and again, I don't know how your mind gets there, but then the leading priest decided to kill Lazarus. Why are we going to kill Lazarus? Well, there's evidence. He was dead, now he's walking around. If we get rid of him, there's no evidence that he was raised from the dead. You get rid of the evidence. It was because of him that many of the people had deserted them again and believed in Jesus. Well, if this guy can raise the dead, I didn't see you guys, your religious leaders raising people from the dead. So I think we'll stick with this guy that's raising people from the dead. Now, this concept of going from ignoring one of the 10 Commandments and deciding to kill your rival preacher, so to speak, and then deciding, well, let's kill Lazarus also. So now you've gone from one murder to 2 murders. How do you do that? Now, it's not as strange as you might think. Probably most of us have found ourselves doing something we never thought we would do. How did we get there? Well, we did something that we didn't think, that's not so bad. And then we did something else we didn't think was so bad. It was a slippery slope. Happens gradually. And all of a sudden you're there and you wonder how that can happen. That's kind of how I interpret this. How do you get to the place where you're not only going to kill one person, you're going to start killing multiple people? So, important thing to understand about first century faith is this. Put it up on the screen. First century faith was faith. We come to a relationship with Jesus by faith, but not because of faith. It was an evidence-based faith. They saw Lazarus. They saw Jesus raised from the dead. They saw the miracles. And so it wasn't a faith in just some kind of theological belief. It was faith in something logical, something concrete, something visual. I believe our faith is still the same. I haven't seen the risen Jesus, but I've seen evidence of God doing things that has no other explanation. So I believe our faith, just like theirs, is evidence-based, and it's logical, and we don't have to check our minds at the door to be a Jesus follower. In fact, just the opposite. So then, go back to our text. The next day, the news that Jesus was on the way to Jerusalem swept through the city. Okay, so this guy's raised people from the dead. We've heard about him. Maybe some people have seen him. Now he's headed back to Jerusalem. It's Passover. The city is as crowded as it gets all year long. There's all this excitement about the Passover. There's all this excitement about Jesus. And if you read the text, there's a place where he marches into the city and they throw the palm branches down and say, Hosanna, Hosanna, which is so ironic because 5 days later they killed Jesus. But that's what happens when he enters the city. Now, again, the Pharisees don't like it much, right? Next verse. So the Pharisees said to each other, nothing we can do about this. We can't stop this. It's kind of like a snowball running downhill. What do we do? Everyone, again, a little exaggeration, but everyone has gone after him. But literally, they had no idea what was going to happen. Because today, on what we call Sundays or Sabbaths or worship days, and yesterday, millions of people all over the world, in all kinds of languages and all kinds of culture, are celebrating some Jewish rabbi that lived 2,000 years ago. How bizarre, how amazing that is. So they had no idea. Well, there's this tension, there's this excitement, there's also this tension between the religious leaders, of course, and Jesus. So the text goes on. No, we're going to flip over to John. Now, with that backstory, Mark tells us about this encounter between Jesus and his disciples and about this leadership principle. Now, they're on their way to Jerusalem, and Jesus was walking ahead of them. Disciples were filled with awe, and the people followed behind were overwhelmed with fear. Taking the 12 disciples aside, so crowds all there, and Jesus says, excuse me, I got to talk to my guys up for a minute. So Jesus takes his 12 guys aside. Once more, which means what? They'd heard this before. In fact, they probably heard it multiple times. Parents, how many times you tell your kids to clean up their room, make their bed, do their homework, right? It's like, don't they hear me the last time I said it? Well, that's kind of what Jesus is doing here with the disciples. He began to describe everything that was about to happen to him. He says, okay, guys, I want you guys to understand what's going to happen, not be surprised. Here's what's going to happen. Next verse. It says, listen, pay attention. We're going to Jerusalem. Duh, that was obvious. That's where we're headed for the Passover. Where the Son of Man, which meant him. Somebody asked me, why does Jesus talk about himself in third person? I don't know. It's just the way the text reads. Where the Son of Man will be betrayed. Now, betrayal is a horrible thing. I don't know if you've ever been betrayed. Most of us have been, if we've lived very long. Somebody we thought was a friend turned out not to be a friend. Somebody thought that liked us, said bad things about us, whatever it might be. He said, I'm going to be betrayed to the leading priests and the teachers of religious law. So these guys that have been trying to catch me, I'm going to be betrayed, so they're going to catch me. And they will sentence me to die. The religious leaders say, you deserve to die for blasphemy, calling yourself God. But they didn't have the power or authority to kill people, so consequently, and hand him over to the Romans, who would actually kill him. Now, if you're one of the disciples and Jesus is saying to this, you're thinking, wait a minute. We haven't ever been more popular than we are right now. And you're the Messiah. You're going to set up your earthly kingdom. What is all this stuff about dying? Then he gets more specific. He gets more graphic. He said they, meaning the Romans, will mock him, me. They'll spit on me, flog me with a whip, and kill me. Again, wait a minute, Jesus. You're more popular than ever. What is all this about dying and torture and all that? And then he added on, of course, and after 3 days he'll rise again. I don't know if they heard that part, but this is what Jesus said. Now, if you're one of the 12 disciples, and Jesus said this multiple times to you, and you're thinking, we're getting close to when everything's going to get really good, and Jesus starts talking about this stuff that's not very good, what's going to be your response? Well, kind of a strange response. 2 of the disciples, John and James, came over and spoke to him, kind of drew him aside. Jesus, the 2 of us need to talk to you. Teacher, you want us to do us a favor. Wait a minute, I just told you I'm going to be tortured and die, and you're asking me for a favor? Now, before we're too tough on them, how much of our prayers are kind of like that? Yeah, God, it's all about you. You're God. You're the Holy One and everything. But, what about me? What about what I want? And that's what they're doing, right? Okay, but what about me? What do I want? Jesus is kind enough to say, okay, what you need, what you want, what's your request? And so they tell him, when you sit on your glorious throne, which you think is going to happen pretty soon, probably, we're going into Jerusalem, it's going to happen. We want to sit in places of honor next to you, one on your right and the other on your left. Of course, you're number 1, you're going to be the king, you're the Messiah, but somebody's got to be number 2, somebody's got to be number 3, and you can pick between us. We're not really caring which one of us is 2 and one of us is 3, but we want to make sure we're 2 and 3. Jesus' response is this: you don't know what you're asking. Was that true? Yeah, that's pretty true. Another way of saying this up on the screen: glory precedes glory. He just talked about it, right? And a couple of weeks we'll talk about this, but Jesus gets in the garden, the soldiers come. What happens to the 12 disciples? 11, excuse me. One of them brought the soldiers. They run as fast as they can. They weren't ready. They didn't know what they were asking. Now, okay, so these 2 disciples, Jesus has just told them about his suffering and dying in the resurrection. And these 2 disciples say, hey, we know about the dying stuff, but the kingdom stuff we like, and we want to be, in authority. And the other 10 disciples hear about this. Now, what should have been their response? Jesus just told about his suffering. He told us about how hard it's going to be. We should be, oh, Jesus, what can we do? How can we help? How can we stop this? But what was their response? The disciples heard that James and John had asked, and they were indignant. Why were they indignant? Because they wanted to be number 2 and number 3. How insensitive. They didn't care about Jesus being tortured and killed. Somehow it's all going to work out, and you're going to have your kingdom. And we, Peter, me, and Matthew, me, I want to be number 2 and number 3. And all I can imagine is Jesus saying, did I pick the right guys? They're not getting it. But of course, we're going to see that he picked the right guys, and they do get it. So, Jesus calls them together. Okay, guys, I need to talk to you. You know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and the officials flaunt their authority over those under them. To emphasize this point of authority, in the Greek there's 2 separate words: lord it over and flaunt their authority. And the disciples would have said what you and I would say: exactly, we know how it works. People with all the power, and they get to dictate. Exactly how it works. Now, before we get to Jesus' response, I want you to ask you a question. Well, what Jesus says next, is this optional? Because often we read these things, we think about these things, or hear somebody teach these things, and we think, let me think about that. Let me just say to you, as we talked about before, if you're a Jesus follower, if you're not, it's a good principle to follow, but if you are, these things aren't optional. It weren't optional for the disciples 2,000 years ago. It's not optional for us. So, he says, you understand, right? He said, but among you, it will be different. Remember, something new, something upside down, which it could be more appropriate than in this illustration. And I'm just imagining. Then he says, hey, how many of you want to be great? James and John would have put their hands up. What about you, Peter? Yeah. Matthew? Yeah. I can imagine all 12 of them putting their hands up. We want to be great. And then Jesus gives them the punchline. Whoever wants to be a leader, wants to be great among you, must be your servant. Well, wait a minute. That's not how it works. The servants are the ones that have to do what the master tells them. Then it gets even worse. He says, whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. Now, servants might get paid. Slaves don't even get paid. Well, Jesus, that doesn't sound like any fun. That's not something like we want to do. And before they can object, and before you and I can object, notice what Jesus says. For even the Son of Man came not to be served. I'm God, I'm the Messiah, and I didn't come for you to serve me, but to serve you, to serve others. Not only to serve them, but to give my life as a ransom for many. Now again, if you're a Jesus follower, this is a principle for our lives. It's not optional. And the neat thing about this is it has the potential and is transformational. Not only for us, but those that we serve. Next slide. Jesus was the king that came to reverse the order of things. Literally. Politically. Not only religiously. Now, did these guys get it to this point? No, they didn't get it. But it's interesting to read the book of Acts after Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the four accounts of Jesus' life. There's an account of the early church. You read the book of Acts, the early church had problems. We always think, oh, the early church was great. No, they had problems like all churches. Some of you have heard me say this. If you find the perfect church, don't join it because you'll mess it up. But a bigger question is this. If you find the perfect church, they won't let you join it because they know you'll mess it up. But anyway, the early church had problems. In chapter 6, you know what the problem was? The disciples were spending time feeding the widows, not only Jewish widows, but the Greek widows, that they weren't spending enough time praying and reading and teaching the Bible. And so they had this election and elect some other people, spiritual people, to take care of the widows. And then the disciples went on with their prayer and teaching ministry. So then let's get back to John, chapter 13. They come to prepare the Passover. Jesus with his 12 disciples. Jesus knew that the hour had come. Now it was time. That was time to let himself be arrested. This way, described here, is to leave this world and return to his Father. He had loved his disciples during his ministry on earth, and now he loved them to the very end. Now, independent of the fact that he was going to die, Passover was a very emotional time for Jewish people. They were celebrating this tremendous event where the Israelites Moses got them out of Egypt and all that. And they've been celebrating this for 1,000 years, and very emotional, and again, the high point of their religious year. And then Jesus does something just completely bizarre, off the wall. He got up from the table, took off his robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, and did what? He washed the disciples' feet. I just picture the disciples there at this point panicking. We didn't wash his feet. We didn't think to wash anybody's feet. We didn't think to get somebody else to wash feet. So Jesus is doing it. And so in verse 8, Peter said, no, you shouldn't be doing this. You'll never, ever wash my feet. And Jesus said, unless I wash you, you won't belong to me. You're out of here, Peter. Peter said, okay, then wash my whole body. Now, again, I think we missed some of the tension here. How long does it take to wash 12 people's feet? Quite a while, right? You can imagine disciples sitting there watching this, thinking to them, what are they thinking to themselves? And what are they saying to each other? Because here's one thing they knew on the screen. Next slide. They knew what his hands could do. He'd healed the sick and raised the dead, cast out demons. Now these hands are washing my feet. But I think he got their attention, don't you? And then he has this leadership principle to teach again. He says, since I, your Lord and teacher, because I'm the Messiah, have washed your feet. So I'm at the top of the food chain, right? And I've washed your feet. You're somewhere down. You ought at least watch these others' feet because you're kind of on the same level, right? And then he says, this is an example, next verse. Give an example for you to follow, as all my life has been. So do as I've done to you. Again, not optional. You would follow me, follow my example. I've just showed you the greatest leadership principle. Do it. And then he says this, I tell you the truth. Slaves are no greater than their masters, right? Messengers are more important than the one who sends the message. Basically said, you guys aren't better than me, right? So consequently, you have and I have no excuse. And then he finishes up with this. Now that you know these things, maybe it'd be better if you hadn't come this morning, because now you know these things, right? Now that you know these things, God will bless you. I'd like to be blessed. Want to be blessed? Everybody raise your hand. How do you get blessed? For doing them. Blessed means what's best for you, best for people around you. Now, if you read the history of the early church, they did this. They took care of the sick. What did the Greeks and the Romans do with the sick? They didn't want to be around them. They didn't know which diseases were contagious or communicable, so they didn't take any chances. If you're sick, get out of here. I don't want to catch what you got. So the Christians would take care of the sick, and they would leave babies out on the streets, and they would adopt and raise these babies. And the reason they could do that is this. They weren't afraid to die. If you're not afraid to die, you can take care of sick people. And there's something, even though it was bizarre in their world, there's something appealing about that, isn't there? And eventually it became contagious. And within 300 some years, this knockoff of Judaism, this thing we call Christianity, the church, the ones that the Romans had killed and the leader of, declared to be the only legal religion in the Roman Empire. How does that happen? Because this principle works. It worked 2,000 years ago. Let me ask you a question. You think it'll work today? What would it look like? It's something you can just ask yourself. Get yourself in this mode. How can I help? Parents, teachers, students, people around here. I'm a positional leader being a pastor. How can I help you? See, the interesting thing is God asked himself this question 2,000 years ago, didn't he? How can I help you, my creation? Well, the only way I can help you is to send my only son to earth to suffer and die. Conquer death and be raised from the dead. So that's what he did. So imagine what our world would look like if we, the church, would adopt this principle that Jesus modeled so magnificently for us. I didn't come to be served. If I didn't come to be served, but to serve, certainly you and I should. So something we do this time each year, we give you an opportunity to serve, literally. So we're going to pass you out a serve card. If you've been here before, you can fill one of these out. About things you can try, things you're doing. This is some samples on there. You can write anything else that you're doing on there. We tabulate all these, and it's just magnificent. It's fantastic to see that you all as your hands and feet of Jesus. A couple of mission trips are on there. Be part of our guest experience. Guys, you can come up. Production and media. You may have a thought for a ministry we aren't even doing right now. Say, hey, I'd like to start this ministry, or I'd like the church to think about this ministry. So, do we take seriously what Jesus said? That's what it boils down to. Do we take it seriously or not? He said, blessed are you if what? You do it. Do it. What is it? Serve. Being the hands and feet of Jesus. And lots of you are doing lots of amazing things. Put that on there. Like I say, it's fantastic to tabulate this stuff. But some of you need to be doing something. If you're going to be a Jesus follower, he can set the example. If you're a follower, you have no option but to follow the example. We'd like you to fill this out right now. Put your name on there. Praise team will sing, but I'm going to pray first and take as much time as you need. When the service is over, if you need more time, take more time. And we'll collect these with the other cards, but if you want to keep yours longer, hand it to me at the door. Okay? So, let me pray for you. Father God, thank you. I thank you for this wisdom in God, in your word. I thank you for this wisdom in Jesus' teaching. Because we understand it, most of us have practiced this at times, that there is a blessing to serving. It's what we're wired to do. It's how we best exemplify Christianity. And it's certainly the best way for us to spread the good news of Jesus. It worked in an amazing, just mind-boggling way in the early church, first century to third century. And God, we believe that it can work again. So, we're a small group, but God, start with us. That's our prayer. Start with us. Change us, change our community, and eventually let the world be changed. As always, God, we want to pray for anybody that's not a Jesus follower. We're glad that they're here. We pray today was a day they would say, yes, yes, Jesus, I want you in my life. I need my sins forgiven. I want to have a relationship with God. I want to have the blessings of being connected with God. I want to have the blessings of being your hands and feet and serving. Most of my life has been selfish up to this point. It's all been all about me, kind of like those two guys that want to sit in Jesus right and left. But it's kind of left me empty. It's not how you wired me, God. There's something missing. So today, Jesus, I believe it's you inviting you into my life. Father God, I just thank you for those that made that decision this morning. I thank you for these folks as they become your hands and feet. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Obviously, you got your Connect cards that we talked about before to let us know about these things. You can duplicate them if you want, put them on both cards. If you put them on one or the other, we'll tabulate them together. So let the praise team have a final song, and we'll let you go. Thank you.
You're like starlight in the dark, and the smiles can't conceal you, and every glimmer is a spark, catching fire as you break through. Oh, you're not far away, you're coming close. And oh, even as I wait, you're coming close. You're like summer in the night. The sun goes down, but still I feel you. And every shadow's turning bright. every broken heart is made new. Oh, you're not far away, you're coming close. And oh, even as I wait, you're coming close. There's no hide and seek. There's no space between you and I. You and I. And you are closer than the very oxygen I'm breathing in. Oh, I breathe you in. And you are God with us. You are here with us. Emmanuel. Emmanuel. And you are infinite. Your glory has no end. Jesus. Jesus. Closer than my breath, closer than my skin. There's no hide unseen. There's no space between you and I. You and I. You are closer than the very oxygen I'm breathing in. Oh, I breathe you in. And you are God with us. You are here with us, Emmanuel. Oh, and you are infinite. Your glory has no end. And Jesus, Jesus. And oh, you're not far away, you're coming close. And oh, even as I wait, you're coming close. You're like starlight in the dark, and the smiles can't conceal you. And every glimmer is a spark, catching fire as you break through.
Thank you, church. You sounded wonderful. Have a great week. See you next time.